Trev's Top Tens. You're on Trev's Hockey Show. I'm the Trev. That's too sweet. Anyway, getting ready for the regular season. And I already gave you my 10 bold predictions. Now I'm going to give you the other one. The 10 teams that I think are worth watching this season. For good reasons, for bad reasons, for any reason at all, really. There's lots of storylines coming into the season. There's lots of storylines that will play out. Here are 10 teams that I think storylines or not, good play or not, are just maybe it was worth paying a little more attention to. Just to see, if they're going to get any further or if they're going to get any worse. But I felt the 10 I picked were, in my mind, worth keeping an eye on. And I'll explain why when I get to it. So, let's talk about it. So, in no particular order. Now, this is just my own selfish edition, but when it comes to your Seattle Kraken, I'm a little bit concerned, as if the video wasn't enough. But I at least want to put them on here just to see if I'm right or wrong to be concerned. I mean, with the additions we made in the offseason, which weren't many, it didn't really seem to improve us much. But, again, regular season is a much different thing compared to the offseason. So we'll see how things play out. We'll see if goaltending becomes that worrisome bug that we went through last season, and that I hope doesn't play out this season. But you never know. I mean, when you got Decord, Grubauer, and now Matt Murray in the fold, anything's possible, right? So again, just to see if I'm right to worry. So when it comes to the Sabres, are you ready for 15 seasons without playoff hockey? Because looking at it as it is, that's probably exactly the way it's going to go. I mean, trading Peterka didn't necessarily help the cause at all, but at the same token, it doesn't seem like much has helped the cause in the last 15 seasons. Don't expect it to get any better. And maybe what has to happen is not so much personnel changes, but ideals in the focus of what should be with this team. 15 years, no playoffs. That's a little excessive. Something really seriously needs to change. Hopefully it does for the betterment of the Sabres. And not far behind that, I got to add the Detroit Red Wings. Yeah, they're going through their 100th season, but they're also in jeopardy of not making the playoffs for a 10th straight season. And this was, I'm sure, not part of the Yzer plan. And if the Yzer plan hasn't worked to this point, and it's not going to work this season, I'm not saying it won't, I'm not saying it will, but if it's not going to work at this point in the season, does that have to change in Detroit? I mean, they have the tools. Picking up Gibson was not a bad thing. I mean, it might have been a year too late, but is that enough? Are we solidly sold on defense? And when can Larkin and DeBrincat really start to pull the ship out? Because 10 seasons without the playoffs in Detroit, you might as well go back to being the dead things and being happy with that. So for the Utah Mammoth, the interesting thing I want to think here is what are they going to do for season 2? They were so close to the playoffs, and if you take the backstory of the Utah Mammoth into consideration, that being the former Phoenix Coyotes, Arizona Coyotes, whatever you want to call them, being that close to the playoffs in that short a time, that's impressive. But if you just take away and call it the Utah Mammoth and forget their previous history, then playoffs has to be the goal, right? And you got to think the players on the team, the Kellers, the Gauthiers, they're going to have much better seasons. Add in JJ Peterka, and you're almost solid sold. Like, I mean, tough up the defense, tough up the net, and you got yourself a team. But it'd be interesting to see with how tough the West is, especially in the Central, if they'll actually make the room and make the headway. I for one, think it'd be great to see. Now, it'll be interesting to see how the Anaheim Ducks perform under Joel Quenneville. At the same token, it'll be interesting to see if Joel Quenneville remembers how this coaching game is done. Got to remember, he hasn't coached in about almost 3 years. So is his style antiquated, or can a team like the Anaheim Ducks fall in line under the Quenneville system. And I mean, as I'm recording this, the Ducks just reported that they had signed Mason McTavish to 6 years, so that big question mark is gone from there. The rebuild can begin, and maybe Quenneville will make a difference. Maybe, but this is the Ducks. Yeah, I include the Maple Leafs. They lost a 100-point score for Nicholas Waugh. How do you replace Mitch Marner as a 100-point scorer, or do you have a new core four in mind with Matthew Knies? It seems to be the way you're going, right? This long in Toronto, and they've made enough changes in the offseason. What else needs to change for them to beat that second round hump? I mean, we could talk about the first round hump, but now they've made it to the second round. Can they go beyond that? And you got to think the Maple Leafs fan base probably wants to see a very long push, not just for regular season success, but for playoff success. I mean, 1967 was a long time ago, right? Right. So it'd be interesting to see what happens in Toronto if the changes made, for better or for worse, do enough to improve the team, at least in terms of being successful. So by extension, I can't not include Vegas. How do the Golden Knights look with Toronto's old 100-point scorer now? I mean, you got to remember, Vegas is a team that has never had a 100-point scorer play for them. Well, I'm sure they have, but nobody in the Vegas system now has recorded 100 points. So adding a guy like Marner, who has scored 100 points, what's he going to do for Eichel? What's he going to do for Stone? What's he going to do for Hertl? The possibilities in Vegas are always endless. And I've mentioned it in my 10 bowl predictions. I do think they're going to win the President's Trophy. That's probably an early spoiler. Sky's the limit for the Vegas Golden Knights this season. And you got to think the addition of Marner is not a bad addition at all. Is it strong enough in the West? Maybe. But I think it'll be enough. Not so much for Vegas to finally have a 100-point scorer actually score 100 points on this team, because I'm not saying Marner will. I'm maybe saying Eichel might. Hard to say, but I think that kind of firepower definitely makes Vegas a solid contender. I don't know why I find it kind of ironic that I'm adding Dallas at number 3. Could it be that they've been Western Conference finalists for the last 3 seasons and haven't made that jump? But can the Dallas Stars, I don't know how to put this, can they play the system of a new old coach? You gotta remember, the last new old coach in the NHL is in Buffalo and hasn't done much of anything. So does Galutzin's time being an assistant in Edmonton help contribute to the Dallas Stars' success? Who knows? I mean, with Robertson, with Ottinger, with Johnson in the lineup, the possibilities are endless. And you got to think of how many players on the team that play with those guys are going to improve as well. I mean, at the same token, as I'm recording this, Ben is on IR right now. And Sagan, well, Sagan hasn't been the same Tyler Sagan in a long time. So much like the case of the Penguins, how long do you hold on to your aging players for the sake of trying to get that win, right? But as far as long-term success for the Stars, I mean, it's hard not to think that they could be Western Conference finalists again, because they've done it for the last 3 years. But what happens when they're not? I'm not saying they're not going to make the Western Conference finals, but I'm not saying they won't either. On the term of finalists, I'm talking about the last 2 Stanley Cup finalists, that being the Edmonton Oilers. Can they make it to the Stanley Cup for a 3rd year in a row? And can they come out with the opposite effect? I mean, being an Edmontonian, a lot of the Oilers fans I've walked into and talked to, they're pretty tired. They want that cup, and they want that cup now. And again, as I'm recording this, Connor McDavid has not signed an extension. That shouldn't be any reason for anybody to worry, because, I mean, why would McDavid do a John Tavares thing and string this out till July 1st and sign with someone else, right? Right. But what other changes in Edmonton has to happen for the Oilers to actually be, instead of Stanley Cup finalists, Stanley Cup champs? I mean, you don't have Corey Perry on the team anymore. The goaltending hasn't really changed. I mean, is the confidence in Skinner still there? Are you going to ride Pickard? Are you going to pick somebody else up during the season? Who knows? I mean, outside McDavid, Draisaitl, maybe even Nuge if you want, and Hyman, the bulk of the roster hasn't changed. There's really not a lot of additions to the scoring power other than maybe Mangiapane. But who's to say what he can do at Edmonton? Either way, I think the point of making it to the Stanley Cup and being champions this time has really got to be kicking themselves in the butt. Hard to say if they'll do it, but it'll be fun to see. So why not include the two-time Stanley Cup champ Florida Panthers, the back-to-back Stanley Cup champ Florida Panthers on this list? Now, as I'm recording this is just coming off the heels of Alexander Barkov being basically ruled out for the entirety of the regular season with his knee injury, and with Tkachuk out till at least December, maybe January. Gotta remember, this is the same team that's made the Stanley Cup Finals 3 years in a row and won it the last two. Is this the point where the injuries are starting to pile up, be it long-term or just freak accidents that happen in practice? The bulk of the roster is unchanged. They managed to keep pretty much everybody from the last two cup runs. Is there a point where it's just get to be where it wears them down? The grind of it. I mean, like I said, Stanley Cup Finals 3 years in a row. That's a lot of hockey. That's 4, 8, 12 rounds of playoff hockey in those 3 years alone. Not counting the tournaments in mid-season between the Four Nations and the Olympic break coming up this season. The schedule is obviously condensed last season and this. So is scheduling finally going to catch up? No, I'm pretty confident in the roster they got. They still got Reinhart, they still got Bennett, they still got Marchand, and they still got goalie Bob in the net. Everything should be good. But taking Barkov out of the equation, pretty much like I said, for the entire season, and not having Tkachuk till maybe December, maybe the new year, how's this going to affect the team? I mean, obviously it's changed my division predictions, so does it change the trajectory of the Panthers going into this season? Hard to say. I will say, though, losing Barkov is a hard pill for the Panthers to swallow. I don't know, I have no doubt in my mind they'll do well in the regular season. It's the playoffs you really want to worry about the Panthers, and I'm not even going to make the prediction of them not making the Stanley Cup Finals, because regular season and playoffs are two different things. You don't really want to predict that till you get there. But it'll be interesting to see how the Panthers play this season at least. So that was my 10 teams to watch for the 2025-26 NHL season. Let me know what you think. So that's another one of them Trev's Top 10s here on Trev's Hockey Show. I want to thank you for tuning in. Don't think I don't appreciate the gesture, especially if you've made it to this point. If you've made it to this point, I'm very proud of you. I've taken up a lot of your time and you're still here, so I can dig that. But if you have made it to this point, you're digging what I'm doing, you just want to say, hey, by all means, throw me that thumbs up. Trust me, a thumbs up goes a long way in exposing this channel to anybody who might be interested in hockey-related stuff, which I am quite guilty of talking about on this channel quite often. So that's never a bad thing. If you want to, if you haven't done so by now, that red button that says subscribe all over it, come on, you know you want to hit it. I know you want to hit it. The algorithm knows you want to hit it. So why deny yourself a good thing, right? I mean, we're making that push to 500 by the end of the year. We're so close to 350 now. And to everybody who's jumped on board, thank you very much. I do appreciate your company, and I do appreciate being able to make this content for you. And I'm glad you appreciate it on this end, or else you wouldn't subscribe, right? Right. But hopefully I can keep you around for as long as humanly possible. So let's keep this good time rolling. If you want to, that link in my description below, that'll take you to my Facebook page. Feel free to join that. I'd love to have the audience built there like I have the audience built here. I'm posting on there quite frequently. And yeah, I'd love to build an interactive kind of community on that page. Hey, feel free to post anything on there, asking me a question about my opinions on this or that or the other. As long as it's hockey related, we'll get along just fine. So moving forward, well, I'm done the second of my 2 top 10s before going into the regular season. So that ultimately means that my division predictions are going to be on the way. And trust me, you'll see them before opening day. But either way, in the meantime, and in between time, be looking for me, Trev. Later.